matter. It is another episode of the Manely Broncos Podcast, and we are ushering in a new era of the Manely Broncos Podcast because not just of the new free agents that are being signed by the Denver Broncos, but it's a new era here at the podcast because it is also Jordan Lopez's first official podcast of being a member of the Manely Broncos Podcast.
Welcome, sir.
Welcome. Before we dive into obviously any of the big news of the day, actually, I should say the biggest news of the day is that this is your first official pod. So, Jordan, welcome in. You're a star in the making, buddy, and thank you so much for hopping on and being a part of the family.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like your free agent signing, right? And Broncos made some moves, Manny made some moves. I mean, this is pretty awesome. But yeah, I am very grateful and thankful that you guys allowed me to join you guys and stuff like that and become part of the family. So I know it was we had some talks, Cam, and we eventually got it done. And it was good. I'm excited for the season to come up, and already in the first episode right now, we got things to talk about. I think if I was to compare myself to Evan Ingram right now, right?
Well, I was gonna say it was that, or I was trying to think of like who would be like because you're a young buck, right? Like who would be a young up and coming star that maybe the Broncos would have signed. Actually, not to put too much pressure on you. Maybe this is the Peyton Manning offseason acquisition.
Ooh. That is a big that's pressure right there, Cam.
We are grateful to have you. You did incredible work, with Broncos Ave, and it did kind of unfold quickly. Like that's the thing, is like it did kind of unfold rather quickly, and we're really happy to have you.
He came in for a visit. We took him to Shanahan's.
Yeah,
I don't know about Shanahan's. We took him to a visit in the sense of, he came by and I should say, he went to the Falcons game.
That's true. That's true. And then, I visit there, and then a week ago, me and Brandon, went out. We, he reviewed my physicals. We talked about it, and
passed the medicals.
There we go.
Yep. But it's exciting, guys. And we tell ourselves this every single year. That the Denver Broncos are having a great offseason, right? Because that's kind of what us fans do, right? Like that is what us fans do. We basically just we start soaking in the idea that we are having a great offseason. Well, I'm kind of doing it again. The Broncos are having a good offseason. And it started out with a bang, and so it is something else. And I'll start with you, Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
We won't necessarily talk about the moves necessarily just yet, but just take us through this whole frenzy of the last, couple of days.
I mean, honestly, the biggest thing that stood out to me before we get into any analysis of actual signings is just this team knew exactly what it needed and exactly what we were trying to go for and went out and got it, right? I mean, the speed at which that happened is maybe not what most impatient fans are expecting or wanting or looking to happen. But that just to me signals, one, we believe in this team, we believe in Bo Nix, we believe in what we're able to do, which is pretty obvious after he led us to a double-digit win season, first playoff appearance in almost a decade, right? I mean, that's pretty apparent. But
right.
To me, it just kind of signaled to me that both Peytons were going into this offseason with a very specific shopping list in mind, and we heard Sean talk about it too many times about the need for a joker. But to me, it's just this is the kind of offseason that you want to do when you have finally found your franchise quarterback and he's on a rookie deal. This is the move you do. These are the moves you do. You go out there, you fill up your holes with quality starters, and just allows you to. It's almost kind of the John Elway draft strategy, John Elway offseason strategy that he kind of espoused for so many years when he was our general manager, in that, you fill the holes in free agency, and then that allows you to kind of have more flexibility in the draft, right? And yes, I know we do not have a punter yet, but I'm confident that Stonehouse will probably fill that role here soon. Also, appreciate the donation here, Jay Bryan.
Oh, of course, we were going to get that.
I didn't see that, but I mean, that's the biggest takeaway for me, and we'll get into the specifics. But we knew what we wanted to do, and we went out and we did it, and like that's what I'm taking away from what we've done so far in this offseason. And that's exactly what you should do, again, when you're in this situation and you have a quarterback that's on a rookie deal that's proven that he could be your guy.
Yeah. Thank you again, Jeff, for the super chat, and feel free to anybody that is, in the comments or whatever, you guys can give, offer up a super chat, to whatever you feel is, in heart desire. So it's going to be very, it's going to be a fun season all season long. And yes, support the boys. Make sure you hit that subscribe button over there on the MHRT Network page over there on YouTube. Let's see if we can get ourselves to 2,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. Jordan, I'm going to send it off to you. Brandon kind of nailed it on the head a little bit, about the whole God bless Bo Nix, really. Like we're so thankful for, having a franchise quarterback. I think the one thing that I would kind of take it a step further is everybody made it a kind of a notion, and it wasn't a wrong notion, but everybody was kind of making the notion that Sean Payton and the Broncos were going to maybe push it to 2026. No, he ain't waiting, right? Like he ain't waiting. He made sure that he would, whether it was just a few pieces here and there on the defense, very, very, very solid pieces, but he wanted to make it a priority that he was going to go all in on this team as a Super Bowl winning caliber team, or more importantly, a playoff caliber team, Jordan.
Yeah, I think we're used to, in past off seasons, just free agent signings that were more just stopgaps, just kind of like just bridging the gap, and hey, this is just going to hold this position for now, and hopefully in the future we can get our guy. I mean, this year it looks like there's more, like there's alignment throughout the whole. There's organizational structure. Like they know what they wanted. They knew what to get, the needs and wants, all that, and they were spot on with it. And again, I know a lot of fans were impatient to keep it nice, but they got what they wanted, in my opinion, with the guys they got. And listen, the rich got richer, right? Our defense was our best unit last year, and we just added 2 ferocious defensive guys are only going to make that unit better, right? So again, the organizational structure is so refreshing to see, because we haven't had that in what may seem in like forever. Because
8 years, maybe?
Yeah, because every offseason we knew what the team may do, but it was almost question marks that I don't know if they're going to do this, I don't know if they're going to do that. This year there was more of an alignment, like, hey, I think they're going to go after these guys, and they did, right? Like there's more of an alignment there. So it's refreshing to see that. It's nice to see that. And listen, the Broncos' time to win is now, and I think those moves reflect that. Right. And it's nice to see that with these free agent signings, they're in it to win it now.
Yeah. Let's start backwards. How about that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, let's start backwards. So we'll start with the current signing that happened, of course, today as free agency officially opened. Let's put in air quotes, officially, open. Make sure you guys continue to keep us updated. If we missed anybody that we missed, of course, with Broncos players that either re-signed or whatever, keep us accountable, if you will, in the chat. All right. So I think it's actually appropriate to start with this one because, for one, I see Nate Atkins in the chat, and he kind of plays somewhat of the same position in the venture of tight end. But Evan Ingram, a lot had been said. A lot had been said about Juwan Johnson this, Juwan Johnson that. And the one thing I will say is, and you guys briefly touched on it, is don't watch what Sean Payton says, watch what he does. So if there's one thing that we know that he was looking for a joker, he was looking for a tight end. And so everybody just assumed, myself included, Jordan, Brandon, everybody really was all just assuming, Juwan Johnson, connection to the Saints because of, some of the moves that he had made in the past, some Saints that were coming here, right? Like little Jordan Humphrey. Well, we may be talking about him, but little Jordan Humphrey. You had Marquez Callaway, right? As a player who came in. So there were some ties, right? There were some ties, to the Saints, obviously, even some of the coaching staff, Zach Strief. So it kind of made it easy, right? It kind of made it easy to go with Juwan Johnson. No, the moment, that the Denver Broncos at least saw that there was an opening to go out and get someone better, the very first move, really, that they ever did before some of the other moves that were non-Broncos started rolling in was they visited with Evan Ingram. The best tight end on the market, by the way. The best tight end on the market, and he became available. They brought him in for a rather long visit, mind you. Took him to Shanahan's, ended without a deal. Took quite the timeline turn of whether or not he's visiting with the Chargers, not visiting with the Chargers, to the national media finally catching on to. The idea that he was in fact visiting with the Los Angeles Chargers. And then it came today at about 3:00 Mountain Time that Evan Ingram signs a 2-year, a little north of $20 million, in a contract to go to the Denver Broncos, giving them a playmaker at that position, Jordan.
I mean, this is what we wanted. This is the guy we wanted at tight end. At least I won't speak for everybody, but I think the majority wanted Evan Ingram just because of his natural receiving ability and what he could do with Jacksonville. But listen, I'm glad Sean Payton was, or at least from what we've heard, somewhat aggressive in pursuing Evan Ingram. I mean, if you take him out and you wine and dine him, I think you pretty want that guy pretty bad, right? So I'm happy we got him. Our passing game exponentially got better. And it's going to be interesting now what we do. I wonder what happens with that 20th pick. I know that's another discussion for another day, but I think still drafting a tight end is very much a possibility. Even though we got Evan Ingram, I still do believe that a tight end needs to be drafted, especially with this rich class that we have in the draft class. But yeah, I love this Evan Ingram move. The passing game is going to be a lot better. I think Bo Nix is going to love him. I think Sean Payton's going to love him. Yeah. So we got better.
Matty, send it off to you, pal. The Denver Broncos signed Evan Ingram. Take us through the whirlwind of emotions on your side.
Well, in the predominantly orange chat today, it was a pendulum swing for sure, because like
mood swings, probably what we call it.
We were certain we were getting somebody else for around $14 million a year. Yeah. And then that didn't come to fruition because we had already assumed that once Ingram left the building, that he left the building. He didn't just leave the building, he left the city, right? He left the state, and he was like, you know what, I'm heading west, and we thought he was going to stay. Didn't end up turning out that way. I wonder how bad the visit went with the Chargers or what the apprehension was, because obviously, like, he either wasn't sold on us or we weren't sold on him, and it justified a whole ass plane ride out there after having spent a whole day with us. Like, that's a pretty long ass first date. That was as a matter of fact, it started the night before. At Shanahan's. Yep. You know what? Like, we didn't just have an overnight. Like, we got breakfast in the morning. Like, we liked each other. I thought that date went well. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, you're still seeing other people. I thought, like, what are you doing on Hinge still? Like, let's get up off of that. It turns out the grass wasn't greener for one of the parties there, and decided to stick it out with us. But pretty incredible that we finally have a tight end. Look, all it took was a pair of hands and a pulse, and then you're like competing for like the number one spot for tight end for us. Really, over the last decade, I mean, give or take a few things out of Noah Fant that we saw early on, but rest in peace, Drew Lock, wherever you are in the NFL right now. But man, like, we got us a guy now. And if nothing else, even if he doesn't like absolutely ball out for us, like all the time, you have to know where he's at defensively, which forces other things to happen. And maybe a linebacker stays in, maybe a safety, isn't as aggressive over the top. And then who knows what happens on the back end with burners like Franklin and Mims, and Cooper Kupp maybe still is in the play. We don't know yet, but man, a lot of effects can happen now when you have a guy like Ingram. Oh, he doesn't block. Well, great. We have 72 guys that can go in there and be a 6th offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Get me somebody that can run the seam and put pressure on the defense. So I'm super excited as you see our class there. It's not quite 2014, but we're humming. We're enjoying life here in Broncos country.
That is Matty in our PO chat sent that big honking like whiteboard. It's literally as tall as him, if not bigger than him.
I'm so excited for it, man. 70 inches across. Like, what more do you need?
Yeah. Brandon, Evan Ingram.
It's at the draft board. Yeah, man. This was the perfect signing to me. And this kind of underlines something I'll say with the rest of the class as well when we get to it. But I talked about the shopping list that this team had going into this offseason. And to me, the number one thing that kind of was like circled, underlined, highlighted, written in all caps and bubble letters and like had hearts drawn around it on that shopping list at the very top was the middle. Just literally the middle of everything, the middle of the defense, middle of the offense, middle of the field, the seams, MOF. Because that's what's up.
It was just Frankie Muniz.
Frankie Muniz. It was literally just a photo of Frankie Muniz in a big heart. And the reason I say that is like Evan Ingram, he's going to be 31. He's not going to be that, insane, almost like big slot wide receiver. I mean, not that he isn't that, but he's not going to be that same level of player that he was earlier on in his career when he was younger. He was making those like crazy catches. Not that he can't do that anymore, but I feel like Evan Ingram at this point in his career is going to be more of your like, he's literally what we talk about when we talk about tight ends for specifically rookie quarterbacks, which is he's your safety blanket. He's your middle of the field safety blanket that Bo can throw to in an area of the field that he's very good at throwing to in that short to intermediate level of the field, who can soak up a ton of catches, get a lot of volume, get a lot of targets, be an actual red zone threat for you and score some touchdowns. And like, he's not going to have to be even what he was in 2023 with the Jags, where he caught 114 passes for almost 1,000 yards. Like, he doesn't even have to do that to make an impact on this team. You tone that down by 40. He's a 70 catch guy. That's still going to be just such a boon for this offense that has not had a tight end in years upon years upon years. So this was definitely a signing that I was excited to see. I was also kind of in the Juwan Johnson camp just because I like the idea of having a guy that can block and also can be a wide wide receiver a little bit for you in the slot, a big wide receiver, but also has like that red zone efficiency. So you don't really have to, you can kind of leave him in there on all downs, right? But that's not to say that I don't like Evan Ingram. I think Evan Ingram, for what he is and what this team needs, is exactly going to fit the bill. Like, he's so much better than anything we've ever had for the past, decade, right? The bar was not high, but to me, that's just what this signals is. This is going to open up the offense so much. He's going to be a great weapon for Bo to throw to in that short intermediate game. He's going to be another big-bodied weapon in the red zone that can come down with some touchdowns. And this is just like, we've needed this for so long, and it feels like we finally have it. And like, this doesn't even preclude them from taking a tight end in this draft class. If one of these guys falls to 20, I wouldn't even be surprised if we still took like one of the, like Tyler Warren falls to 20. Probably not going to happen, but I wouldn't even be surprised if we took him. I'm not saying I think that will happen, but like my point of this is this doesn't stop us from doing that in the draft. And if anything, this just allows us to do whatever we want in the draft. You want Ashton Genty falls to 20? Do it. You want Tyler Warren? Maybe you want to trade up for Tyler Warren. I don't even care. Do it. Yeah. You want to pick up a tight end in the second, third round. You want to go get someone maybe a little bit later to develop. You want to get Ferguson. You want to get Gadsden. You want to get who's the LSU tight end? That's Mason Taylor. Tons of options available for you. I think we still definitely take a tight end in this draft class because it's just such a good draft for tight ends. But Evan Ingram was just the perfect signing to me. Like injury history, yes, a little bit, but it's not like he tore his ACL. I mean, he had a labrum tear. And then you look at what he was doing for the Jags. Like, yeah, he kind of had a little bit of more of an off year last year, even though like the injury happened kind of late in the season. I think it was like week 12, week 13 or something. And he wasn't like having a career year for the Jags. But this is also a season where they had an absolute standout rookie receiver in Brian Thomas, who comes in and only, scores double-digit touchdowns and has like almost 1,300 yards as a rookie. So there was a lot more mouths to feed, and specifically one more big mouth to feed in that offense. So it doesn't surprise me as much that Evan Ingram kind of wasn't as productive. But look at the 2 years before that, dude had like 187 catches total over the 2022-2023 seasons for the Jags. So this is just going to be just a target machine. It's going to soak up a ton of catches. It's going to be perfect. I love it.
It's the start of the beginning of getting Bo weapons, man. Mike Liss tweeted out the particulars of the deal, talking about in 2025, $8 million signing bonus, $2.9 million salary, $510,000 roster bonus, so a total of about 11.5 fully guaranteed in 2025. And then in 2026, you have a 10.9 a bump in salary, just a little bump. $5 million fully guaranteed, 510 per game roster bonus, and then a total of 11.5 mil. 5 million fully guaranteed. You look at that, like that's a pretty nice steal, actually, looking at a player that is 31, and frankly a player that some might felt like he was a bit over the hill, right? They're a player that might be kind of what is on the decline. Mikey, I should say, or Respect My Codes, drops in our first Cooper Kupp related question, which is an appropriate one, because if what does it do? Like, say the Broncos do land Cooper Kupp, what do you do between Ingram and Kupp? Because you want to talk about middle of the field monsters, like they are two middle of the field monsters. And for Evan Ingram specifically, we're talking about a huge slot, like a big slot wide receiver playmaker that Sean hasn't had since Jeremy Shockey and Jimmy Graham from the U. Yes, I know. We'll start with you, Matty.
I mean, what do we do? Whatever we want. As long as we get the running game figured out, which there's a question about that later. Honestly, we do whatever we want. We could line up in 11 personnel and have Ingram on one side, have Kupp on the other, threatening the slot. You've got Sutton, and you've got, take your pick of Mims or Franklin as the burner to help, threaten the safety over the top. And you can just find weaknesses in whatever zone, or if they run man, obviously good night, because Ingram could kill you or Kupp could kill you on the other side because he gets separation even still. So I understand the logic behind the question, but there's a lot of the middle of the field to go around. And you've got, Ingram's a good route runner too, so he could hit the seam. You can bring him across the field. Like, you can use him in a lot of different ways that a lot of other tight ends just aren't able to do. And he punishes linebackers because maybe they're not as fast. He punishes defensive backs because they're not as big. Like, he is a matchup nightmare unless you bracket him. And then, okay, you're burning 2+ guys for Ingram. and now you're opening things up for somebody else. So I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. I actually think that they can make each other better on the field.
Do you guys have any other thoughts on that?
No, I mean, just for me, I mean, you put Cooper Kupp and Evan Ingram in a bunch formation or in a tight formation, I mean, and you just let them go to work. I mean, I think Sean Payne will make it work. I mean, he's a savant when it comes to that. And, there's a reason why he's touted as one of the best offensive minds in the league. But with Cooper Kupp and Evan Ingram, if anything, it opens up more. It doesn't condense it, at least in my opinion. I think it opens up more. And, I mean, I can only imagine if that does happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's so many other things you could do with it too. Like you can have both these guys in the slot at the same time, right? And that could do any number of different things, and it's going to look the same to the opposing defense. So, like, this is incredibly difficult to defend, but you can use this in like the quick passing game, where again we talk about how great Bo Nix is at that. You can use this in the RPO game and kind of take advantage of some of Nix's athleticism with his legs. Like, you definitely don't. I don't think there's like actually any limitations that comes with having both of those players. I mean, can you do that every single snap? No, but you wouldn't want to. And like having the ability to spell one or both of these guys like is a good thing. So I really don't think there's any negative to having two very explosive weapons that can both play very well for you inside.
Yeah. Moving forward, I see in the comments, since we're working backwards, it's appropriate we talk about that other sighting that happened yesterday. And it actually happened during the recording of the 5280 podcast. And that is Trent Sherfield. The acquisition or signing, I should say, of Trent Sherfield. So we are not ignoring Sherfield now and Landon. This guy is interesting because there's not a wrong way to look at it. In the sense that, like, if you look at it solely in one area, that particular player is on the is not the chopping block, but they're replacing him. In the sense of like he's a special teams player, a special teams ace who's probably going to end up being, one that is an elite gunner, if you will, for the Broncos on special teams. And now that Tremon Smith moved on to his new team, Broncos needed to shore up that area. However, there's the other factor, and I'm going to send it off to his biggest fan on this on this podcast, and that would be Jordan. Little Jordan Humphrey, he might actually be Humphrey's replacement. Jordan. So finally, it seems like your little Jordan Humphrey agenda of him being off the roster might actually come to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be celebrating once this does happen. But yeah, I mean, Trent Sherfield is I think he's a sneaky good pickup. Again, it's not the one that everybody's going to talk about just because it's a special teams guy, and maybe if we do get hit with the injury bug in the wide receiver room, he is one that can step up and make a few plays every once in a while. He was here in Miami for a bit, and I saw him play. He wasn't that bad when he had to fill in some roles and actually run some routes. But I think this is strictly a special teams thing, and I think he'll be good for it. Again, Tremon Smith is a big loss in that department, but I think for the deal that we got on Sherfield, I think it's going to be pretty good.
What about you, Brandon? It does feel like a pretty good value signing. I think the highest ceiling, if you could go for a player, would be like the Juwan Jennings of the world, like just a absolute blocking machine, but a nice, reliable target, depending on what he could be able to offer. That's like the highest of ceilings.
I don't know if I can go that high just because I love Juwan. I love Juwan Jennings, but I get what you're saying. I mean, I don't have anything that is necessarily different from what Matty and Jordan said, but to me, this is like clearly a replacement for Tremon Smith.
And Humphrey, maybe. I mean,
Humphrey, maybe. Although, I mean, Sean Payton loves little Jordan Humphrey. I don't think he's going anywhere. Like, I just don't think that's going to happen. But I think Sherfield gives you a depth piece at wide receiver that you can use if you are in a pinch and you need another body at wide receiver. But I also agree. I think this is like primarily more of a special teams move and a replacement. Sherfield is an elite star signing. You're right. I'm sorry. My bad. He's Jamar Chase. But yeah, I mean, I think this is specifically like a replacement for Tremont, which losing him sucked. Like, he was such a fantastic special teamer. But I mean, you definitely can't have too much depth and too many contributors on special teams. So I think this was a good move. Like, I don't think it's going to move the needle in any one way particularly besides special teams for me on offense. At least I don't think it's going to do much, but I mean, I definitely think, again, the more you can add to that wide receiver room, the better. The more you can shore up the special teams unit, the better. And like, this also, again, doesn't preclude them at all from like taking a wide receiver at 20, like, or not even or signing another wide receiver. Yeah. I definitely think we're probably going to draft a wide receiver as well. But yeah, I mean, I like Sherfield.
I saw that, Jordan.
But I don't think that, again, it's going to be, he's not a world beater, right? Like, he's a solid depth piece, decent on special teams, and we needed some more help there. So it makes sense.
But it is one of those like shrewd moves where it's like, you look back and, as far as like specifically, and I'm not saying he could be taking on like Sportside's job as far as blocking field goals. I'm not saying that, but it's just like the importance, of special teams and the reason for the Denver Broncos emergence. One of the biggest reasons for their emergence in the last, couple of years with Sean has been special teams. And, they really do value that a lot. And that kind of leads us to, the next signing of a player who been maybe unfairly criticized at times, by Bronco fans. And that would be, Justin Strnad, right? And that'd be Strnad. And I think the way we should preface it is that, he is not a starter, but he is a very valued piece on special teams, right? Like a very valid piece on special teams. And so you look at Strnad and you look at Sherfield. We don't need to dive too much on them, but it proves to you, how much they really value special teams with that, and specifically with their new coach, Darren Rizzi.
Definitely.
So now moving forward to the primo candidates that kicked everything off in terms of the frenzy, and which happened on Monday. So we'll go with you, Brandon.
Yeah,
we did our predictions. I should say last week, I believe, and we just kind of did a quick little run through of players that we were thinking, just like rough shot, just quickly, offense, defense, what we thought was going to happen, just kind of like on a clear whim. I said Talanoa Hufanga, just like, it was just like the name that kind of popped in my head. And I was just like, well, the three safeties are sort of talked about, kind of forgot about, Talanoa Hufanga. So I was like, I'll roll with Talanoa Hufanga. As push came to shove, Hufanga ended up being their first signing of the Denver Broncos returning on, re-signings, if you will. I will just, I will send it off to you, Brandon. I mean, I do believe that Vance Joseph signed off on this, but I think if I'm looking specifically at a head coach or a coach who majorly signed off on this deal, it's Jim Leonhard. You look at everything that he's been able to offer at Wisconsin. You look at everything that he has had there. And as a defensive mind, a high intellectual player, a versatile player that can play anywhere up and down your defense. I mean, like, it is, and not to mention a player who plays with his hair on fire, and you certainly hate to throw around some of these comparisons, but and Troy Polamalu is certainly a Hall of Famer, right? But you look at the play style, you look at the way that he plays so aggressively, Brandon. He does remind you at times when he is healthy, and it's like a healthy. The Broncos might have actually gotten one here of like truly one of the best safeties on the market if he is healthy.
Yeah, I mean, this is another one of those flashing lights Frankie Muniz picks. Just because, like, Talanoa Hufanga, it's a risky signing. Like, I'm not going to say that it isn't, because he definitely has had some issues with staying on the field. When he stays on the field, though, he's like literally a first-team All-Pro caliber safety, as he was in 2022. Yeah. But Hufanga just plays with his hair on fire, and I love it. He just brings something to this defense that we kind of haven't really had, to be honest. For a couple seasons, which is just like he's absolute chaos maker. That's all he does. He just like wants to kind of roam the middle of the field, do whatever he wants to do, and he's on a defense that is going to allow him to do that because like the pieces around him are solid. He has Pat Surtain in the secondary with him. He now has Brandon Jones as well. Yeah. He has a former teammate now, Dre Greenlaw, who we'll get to as well up towards the line of scrimmage. And I think it's just going to allow him to just kind of do what he does best, which is roam around the field and make plays. Like he is an absolute game wrecker in the secondary, will absolutely just like maul people like a freight train, a little Steve Atwater-esque a little bit there. I love Hufanga. I think like he was definitely one of the best safeties available, but it is a risk. I mean, health and availability is going to be the biggest thing that you are watching for Hufanga, just specifically because of the way that he plays. He kind of puts himself in positions to maybe get a bit more banged up, but just like such a fantastic safety. We definitely needed safety help. Like such an upgrade from PJ Locke in almost every possible way. Him and Brandon Jones back there are going to be a force, and it kind of fits well because like Hufanga is again more of that enforcer, that like chaos creator. Brandon Jones is kind of more just he's like more grounded. He's like not as risky of a safe. Like he's not going to try to gamble as much, but he's still going to be able to make plays whenever he can. And I think that's just like a great tandem. You don't want to have too much chaos back there because like it could go well, but also everything could just like explode, right? And I think that's again just like the perfect duo. So Hufanga, if he's healthy, is potentially in a place where he could repeat his first team All-Pro selection from a few years ago. So I love this signing.
Who knows? Maybe when everything's all grown, I might actually have the second right there. Jordan, man, Talanoa Hufanga. And we'll get to Greenlaw, but like I think that's the thing that is so fascinating because if he is healthy, you are talking about, so like not to spoil too much with Greenlaw, but like if Greenlaw is healthy, you're talking about a player that has the ceiling of the best linebacker on the market, right? The best linebacker on the market. Hufanga was at a first team All-Pro level in 2022. Like, I think people kind of have a tendency to forget that. And so you add him to the room of a player that I know you are quite familiar with who played with the Dolphins and Brandon Jones. Like I think the thing for me that I'm so excited about is we're finally going to get a glimpse of honestly what it should have been like with Caden Stearns here. The versatility, everything that they can be able to offer. Because I think the playmaking is something that the ball hawkness, if you will, of Hufanga is something that is really going to take the pressure off of, a guy like Brandon Jones.
I mean, if this speaks volumes towards also, because I want to give him a shout out, our strength and conditioning program as well. And I want to shout out specifically Bo Lowry. I mean, a lot of people and a lot of teams may have looked at Hufanga as a more of a high reward, low risk type of guy, which he is. But I think in our building, they just viewed him as a high reward guy because I think everybody does have those injury, questions about him and because of his history and all that, and rightfully so. But the way this team has been healthy the last 2 years, and we haven't been the most, injured team in the league, how we used to be and all that, I think this is a match made in heaven. And for anybody that doesn't know much about Hufanga and what he's about and all that, just look how different the 49ers defense was when he was in the lineup compared to when he was out. I mean, it was two different defenses. I mean, complete opposite. That's how much of a game changer he is. So, listen, if Vance Joseph, and I do think Vance Joseph is going to keep that aggressive personality to him, and we're going to keep on blitzing this year coming up and have that style of play, which I hope we do, because now that we got Hufanga, I mean, we have a lot of options where with what we can do defensively and some things we can some hide and scheme up. So it's going to be fun on the defensive side this year. If you thought last year was fun, with some of the guys that we had, man, Hufanga just makes it just even more fun to watch.
With the amount of aggressiveness and the amount of times that, Vance Joseph was blitzing, just think of the amount of, opportunities that Hufanga or even PJ Locke and Brandon Jones are going to have as far as getting to the passer. Like, it's exciting. Matty, obviously about PJ Locke, a lot of conversation to be had somewhat about PJ. I think for clarification's sake, he did sign a 2-year, $7 million deal last year. So, not a world beater contract, right? And maybe enough of a contract that you could say that that's a safety 3 type of contract. But he was a starter in 2024. So he kind of finds himself in a bit of some limbo, I'd say. If you're going to be, one of the first, people out there probably starting to talk about, in training camp cut candidates, Locke might be one of them. So what do you feel like is in store for PJ now that they did finally invest in that safety position again?
I honestly think he's in a good spot. That's maybe kind of a hot take for people. If he was going to be gone, he would have been gone by now, I think. I know that you kind of would hold on maybe to the guy you have until you get the guy you want. I understand that. But going back to the dating reference, like keeping people on your roster until you know who's coming next. But honestly, he's good as a depth piece. Like what kind of quality guy would we get in his stead? You have to have multiple guys in the back end of your defense. Especially, I mean, you talk about how Hufanga plays. Like, Hufanga is probably not going to play every single down, right? Like, we're going to rotate some guys in and out. Like, we bring him in the box and he's going to, play some run support. Maybe he comes out a little bit. Like, maybe there are some schemes where both him and Locke are on the field in the same down. So, like, it just gives us more flexibility. And it gives us depth. We needed competitive depth. There were certain spots that we were certainly deep on our defense, right? But we saw like middle linebacker wasn't as deep as maybe we thought initially to start the season. We saw exactly how thin that got towards the end. Kind of the same with that safety play. Locke, I think he's more in his natural position or his natural hierarchy. And I think he's not going to be asked to do as much, which is going to allow him to play to his strengths more. And so I think it'll be better for all people involved. Now, that doesn't necessarily, like, his agent is probably not stoked about this because he's playing for his next deal. But as far as like football goes, football fit, team fit, and even health fit and putting him in the best position to be successful, I think this is a win all around. So I don't think it should be as dire in the Locke household as some people think.
And that's one of the reasons why I was kind of prefacing the contract that he signed last year, because it was a 2 for $7, which isn't exactly safety 2 money. It's not exactly, one where it's like, it's also a contract they could easily move on from, right? So it's just one that kind of, in contextual terms, like it's not a bad deal. He definitely deserved the bump, but it was one where it's like, looking back on it, and specifically with Hufanga, it seems like he would fit right in at safety 3, because you do look at what, And to his credit, due to his play, he earned that contract or that bump because he earned the right to be, viewed as a starting safety in 2024. Unfortunately, it didn't backfire, or it backfired on them, I should say. And so, as a result of that, they ended up going and getting Hufanga. Now we go to a position that I know just is it warms the hearts of Broncos country when you see a linebacker play with his hair on fire, sideline to sideline, like an absolute leader in that locker room who's going to be keeping every single player up and down, offense, defense, accountable. And if he does not go down in that Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm firmly convinced they do win that Super Bowl. And I'm talking about Dre Greenlaw. If you haven't had a chance to see this video, it's out there on YouTube. It's from the 49ers. He was mic'd up in the NFC Championship game where they played the Detroit Lions. Jordan, and you're going to least appreciate this, obviously, being the Miami Hurricane fan that you are. But I look at Greenlaw, and there were two linebackers that just really started to come back to me as I'm looking at it, from his play style, and they've not had a linebacker of his swagger since DJ Wilson, or even Al Wilson for that matter. It is remarkable now that it certainly seems on paper that the Broncos finally added attitude to that room in that position.
Just his ferociousness, his tenacity of just playing. He competes, I think, every single play. I mean, he doesn't take one play for granted. Just it's refreshing. It's nice. It's lovely. Any words you want to use, that we got Dre Greenlaw to be the starting linebacker for Denver. It changes. I mean, I think already the defense already had a great attitude starting last year. I think they played fast. They played physical. But this is just a different meaning. Dre Greenlaw just makes it different. And that's what's just so exciting to talk about when we mention guys like Greenlaw and like Hufanga. They just change the dynamic of everything in such a positive way, in such a ferocious way, that this unit was fun to watch last year. But this year is going to be it's going to be appointment television. It feels like every Sunday, Monday or Thursday or whenever we're going to play. I mean, I can't wait to see Greenlaw strap on the pads and put that Broncos uniform on. It's going to be great. And the most staggering stat that I saw, and I even posted about it, was his stats when he was on and off the field. When he was on the field compared to when he was off, the offense was 2 yards fewer on yards per attempt over passes over the middle of the
Crazy.
field. I mean, that is such a tremendous. I don't think people understand how insane that stat is. 2 fewer yards per attempt compared to when he was on and off the field is just insane. It talks about his versatility in the passing game, which is incredible. This is such a great signing, and again, another one that Bo Lowry is going to get his hands on. I think Greenlaw is going to be healthy throughout the season, and it's going to pay off at the end. I think it's a great signing.
Matty or Brandon, your game. Feel free. Talk about this Dre Greenlaw signing.
I have thoughts here. Now, first of all, Dre Greenlaw is a baller. This dude's a dog, man. He is he just wants to kick your ass. That's all Dre Greenlaw wants to do. Yeah. And that's exactly what we needed at linebacker on this defense, because it's been absolutely a hole for several seasons. I mean, we've had some good play from a few guys. I mean, Alex Singleton, tackling machine, but just they've all had liability. And not to say that Dre Greenlaw is not. I'm not saying he's a perfect linebacker, but he's going to do something, give you something at that linebacker position that we just haven't had. That consistency of how he can play in coverage, and just what he's able to do as well against the run. He's just a great great all-around linebacker. And I think last year, unfortunately, kind of in 2024, people forgot about Dre. I had to do it, but I mean, obviously, the absolutely brutal injury that he sustained in that Super Bowl, literally just running onto the field. If you guys see that interview that he gave talking about that, he's like was just torn up. I mean, obviously, who wouldn't be? But dude was just so excited to go compete, go play, is running onto the field and feels that pop, right? Absolutely horrible. But Dre Greenlaw is he's just gonna be one of the best linebackers in the NFL on a team that already had an amazing defense, but again, struggled in the middle. And he's just going to be another one of those enforcer types in the middle of this defense that's just going to he just has an attitude that we haven't really had on this defense. Like him and Hufanga both bring just straight ass kickery. That's what they do. They have PhDs in kicking your ass, and that's what they want to do. And that's what they're going to do. And it's just amazing to me. Like that's going to completely change how this defense plays, and it was already a top 3 defense in the NFL. This is going to be the best defense in the NFL next year. And I think, I'm sorry, but the other thing I was going to say is like keeping Sternad too, I think is a good move as well. Yeah. Like, the linebacker room is just kind of overnight changed to me. And we can still take a guy in the draft. There's a few linebackers that we could get in the later rounds that are pretty good. So, Dre Greenlaw, like, he had that bad Achilles tear, but that was over a year ago. He's still only 27. And it's not like people talk about injuries with both these signings, and I do think Hufanga specifically is more of a risk, but Dre Greenlaw wasn't really he's not injury prone. He just had a really horrible injury that happened to occur on the sideline at the Super Bowl, and it caused him to miss an entire season. But when you have an injury that late in the year, that's what it's going to do. And again, that's been over a year. He's going to be fine. The few times he did play last year, he looked exactly like his old self. Yeah. He is just he's a dude, man. This guy is, and he's exactly what you want.
The 49ers too. I mean, that was just a freak accident. That's not even non-contact. Usually people ask for not to make Hufanga an example, but Hufanga will throw his head into multiple scrums and a concussion might happen. But Dre Greenlaw was just jumping up, getting ready to go on the field, and that was just a freak accident. So I hate whenever I see on social media and and I see comments oh yeah, but this guy's injury prone. Mm-hmm. Bro, if you look at the injury, that doesn't make him injury. That was just a freak accident. If a guy was really injury prone and was just sticking his head into mosh pits every game and getting concussions and hurting his shoulder, his collarbones, then you can call him injury prone because he's basically asking for it. If it's freak accidents, bro, there's no way you can name that guy just injury prone like that. There's no way.
Literally every single other injury he's had in his entire career in the NFL has been minor strains, minor muscle strains, 2022, 2023.
Every NFL player deals with basically.
Literally every single player at any positions, but specifically linebacker with the stuff that they do, and specifically the way that Dre plays linebacker, you're going to have that kind of wear and tear. But again, he's still only 27. It's not like this is his second Achilles tear. And it was a non-contact, just freak injury. He's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. He's going to be Dre, and people aren't going to forget about Dre this year. That's all I'm going to say.
Matty, you read a lot of what the 49ers people, the writers, say about all the losses, that the 49ers and, were happening this year. They mentioned that Greenlaw is number one in terms of the biggest losses, for this team. And I made the comparison earlier, but, you obviously know quite well as much as I do, he is so reminiscent to what DJ Williams brought to this team in terms of the swagger, intensity, and everything at that linebacker position and sideline to sideline speed that this team has severely lacked since the Super Bowl defenses. How are you feeling now, knowing the fact that linebacker position is truly resolved? It certainly feels on paper for the first time since the Super Bowl defense.
Who just won the Super Bowl? The Eagles did, right? What was a commonality on that defense? They took a lot of dogs. They took a lot of Georgia Bulldogs who had a lot of success together and a lot of chemistry. Brought them all in. They figured it out because they knew how to win games and they knew how to play together. Well, the 49ers for a long time were at the top of the NFC and represented it in the Super Bowl a couple of times. Unfortunately, they never could beat the Chiefs, but whatever.
Should have, but that's a conversation for another.
Before we even got into the free agency frenzy, we had a significant signing, about $13 million a year in DJ Jones, who a couple of years ago played with Greenlaw and Hufanga. Greenlaw is attached, obviously, a middle backer. You're backing the line, so you know fits, you know where people are going to go. You guys work together. You see things the same way and know, like, you got to line up here. You got to fit that. I'm eating him up to free you to go there. But also on the back end in coverage, Hufanga and Greenlaw working together to eliminate tight ends with that -2 yards expected per attempt that they had with him on the field. So it's not just that we got a good player. It's not just that we got a good player with a lot of swagger and attitude that's going to be able to inflict pain in a very similar way that, like, Bill Romanowski inflicted pain from the linebacker spot for the Broncos. It's the fact that he's already a force multiplier with the guy in front and the guy behind him in the most vulnerable spot of our defense last year towards the back end. Like, we got good guys in those positions, but those guys already know how to work together to solve the problems that we had. And so that makes it even better. I love getting value on its surface. I love getting value below the surface. And we have a whole iceberg that the NFL has not seen yet, but they're going to feel it.
And I love the fact you talk about the team that's in the Super Bowl. Because that's the other area of this, specifically from the safety and linebacker spot. Free agency was all about, you look at the top needs, or the biggest and deepest positions that were in free agency. It was linebacker and safety, right? It was linebacker and safety. And the Broncos were rather solid at defensive line, right? They were rather solid at defensive line. And then you bring in DJ Jones and really solidify things. We'll talk about his re-signing here in just a little bit. But, you talk about bringing him into the fold. Well, again, the defensive line was really solid. And one of the things that was just so great for this team in run defense was that, defensive line. So you continue to shore up that defensive line here in the draft and, maybe another body here in free agency. You're talking about a really good and solidified, front seven there. But the linebacker play was the greatest weakness of that front seven. So you add a guy like Greenlaw and even Hufanga, who can be able to help in those run fits, is just one of the biggest takeaways for this, is because, like, Hufanga's ability to also help in those run fits is going to be something that may or may not be overlooked at times, by fans. So for all of you guys in the room and for people that are in the chat, this could be a hard question to ask. Who's going to be the biggest fan favorite, Dre Greenlaw or Talanoa Hufanga?
I think it might be Hufanga, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
His style of play. I mean, once he makes those big plays, I mean, the fans are going to gravitate towards him easy.
I'm going with Dre for this, honestly, the same reason, but I feel like you're going to see, I mean, to be honest, like for the fans that are not as into like they're not as deep into like the X's and O's and the nerdy stuff and watching like the all 22 view, they're going to see Dre Greenlaw make more plays than they're going to see Talanoa Hufanga make.
Yeah.
The plays that Dre is going to make are going to be absolutely ridiculous. So I think it's going to be Dre personally, but I love them both. And I think like having both of these guys who again have been like already on the same defense in San Francisco, and like that chemistry coming over is going to be important. This is going to be just crazy defense. I am so excited to watch this defense. Yeah. And like we even talked about like guys like PJ Locke. PJ Locke was like a solid safety. I just don't think that he's the type of safety that should be getting starter snaps. Yeah. But he could be one of those guys that's like better like when he's playing maybe like 40% of the snaps, right? Like
And we saw that
I'm
actually.
excited. I'm
That's
excited.
a good point. That's a good point.
Well, and we saw that actually because like the year before,
Yeah,
he was a really solid third safety for the team.
perfect third safety.
Um,
Absolutely perfect.
now
Just not a starter, which is fine.
we move forward to the one where everybody had, was talking about, like what is going on? Everybody is like re-signing with their own team. What is going on? Basically, in essence, kind of making it in the sense of like free agency is going to be so bare. What is going on? In all of those moves, the Broncos made moves. It led off with the long snapper, Mitchell Fraboni, because long snappers are people too. And then it kicked off with the decision to not bring in Zach Wilson and keep Jarrett Stidham around. So they went out and signed a 2-year, $12 million deal for Stidham to keep him in the room. And then DJ Jones, as we said, we mentioned his name, say his name and he appears. It's not Joe Hendry though. But DJ Jones, 3 years of about $13 million a year. And it kind of got criticized by, some fans. It got rather criticized by some Bronco fans. And I think the initial takeaway is, wow. But I think that when you think about the cap rising every single year, in relative terms, it actually looks like the same kind of deal that he signed basically 3 or 4 years ago, which was a 3 for $30 deal. So it isn't that big of a deal, but I do think that like the initial, like, oh, like, what is this? Like you're giving 3 years of, $13 million a year for a player who did play 40% of his snaps, right? But I mean, he was still rather solid when he was on the field for those 40% snaps.
I mean, the DJ Jones contract is kind of like the exact same one that we gave him before, and then you add in like cap increase inflation. But welcome to the Denver 49ers, man. I mean, I know DJ Jones was already a Bronco, but he came from the 49ers.
Yeah.
I think this was personally a great re-signing. Him or Poona Ford, I would have been happy with either one of them. But DJ Jones is just an absolute baller. And I'm glad we're going to keep him around because he's a great part of that defensive line that has been pretty underrated last year, like in terms of you look at them compared to the rest of the league. I mean, we had one of the best defensive lines in the league, and it kind of didn't really feel like it was talked about that much. I mean, like not that we were totally ignored, like we got some respect, but I feel like for how the defensive line kind of looked in the years prior, last year sort of flipped the script a little bit, and DJ Jones was a part of that. And I think keeping him around is going to be definitely big. So I love keeping DJ Jones.
Yeah. Matty?
DJ Jones, by the way, just want to say this real quick.
Yeah.
He is a locker room favorite amongst everybody, and keeping that locker room the way it is with those guys, I think is very, very big. And I think he actually did play a key factor in the signing. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah,
Matty.
Wouldn't surprise me at all.
You wanted Poona Ford, but I mean, are we happy? Are we happy that they got DJ Jones in the fold?
I didn't like the first act, but the second act after intermission really turned me for this play. Seeing how the rest of it worked itself out. I was like, man, we gave him that and we could have got Ford, which in my mind would have been an upgrade. No offense to DJ. But seeing how the rest of it worked out, it's like, okay, I get it. I understand. And you keep guys in-house happy. We still have a couple of other guys, though, on the D-line that we've got to keep happy. One of them, JFM, sounds like he's a little disgruntled, which is weird because isn't that a weird word?
1 year.
Isn't that weird, though? Like disgruntled? If I told you a guy was gruntled, you would think it was the same as disgruntled, right? What a weird word that is. But either way, I don't think he's super excited that he hasn't gotten an extension done with us. And then obviously, dude, Allen's going to cost us the moon and the stars, but he
Benito
deserves it. So, yeah, we still have a lot left to figure out. I don't know if we get some of these guys extended or if we play out this last year and then just, take that ass whooping next year when we have a little bit more cap. But, it's fine. I would have liked to have gotten Ford for a couple of reasons, selfishly, because I would have won a certain Chick-fil-A bet in the predominantly orange chat. But that's okay. I didn't get Devontae Adams either, so I do owe Cam some Chick-fil-A. I can come forward with that. But man, it's really hard to complain about really anything we've done so far. Like, are you not entertained?
Yeah.
Peyton and Peyton are like, are you not entertained? And we're like, we want a running back still. But like, we'll figure that out. We're good.
That kind of leads us to, what's next, right? Like, absolutely. Like, what is next for this team? There are still some positions of need, and there's a certain wide receiver that, just hit the market, Jordan, you are our wide receiver expert, or I should say, like, you love those wide receivers. So, you look at Cooper Kupp. I mean, with or without Cooper Kupp, I still feel like the Denver Broncos need to add a veteran wide receiver in that room. The question just is going to be about, do they want to commit some of that money to Cooper Kupp, or do they want to sign another guy by the name of Amari Cooper, or someone else? So Jordan, I'll just give you the biggest, elephant in the room question. What are you willing to offer now based on some of the contracts that the Broncos have divvied up to Cooper Kupp?
So, listen, I'm all aboard on Cooper Kupp being a Bronco. Am I confident it's going to happen? If you would have asked me yesterday, I would have said yes. I'm confident Cooper Kupp is going to Denver. As of right now, I'm not feeling that way. I don't know why. It's just a gut feeling I have. But yes, I will pony. I mean, again, if I was in their situation, I will pony up the money to get Cooper Kupp. He is a difference maker. You need to get Bo a guy. You need to get him a guy. And I'm tired of seeing other teams surround their young guy, their young franchise quarterback with weapons. And we're just giving Bo, Troy Franklin, Devon Vele, Corbin Sutton,
little Jordan Humphrey,
Marvin Mims. I mean, and no, there's no disrespect to those guys, but you have to improve the room. You just have to.
In our defense, this was the first offseason we've had to do that.
Which is true. It's just, again, I think it does come with the impatient part as well.
For sure.
I think a lot of people want a wide receiver right now, including me. I won't deny it. But I think we have to get Cooper Kupp. I am willing to pay his market value. I don't know what it is. I've seen two different spectrums of it.
Yeah.
But listen, he is a difference maker. When he got more than 7 targets last year with the Rams, he was still the same old Cooper Kupp. He didn't have that great of a statistical 3-game, 4-game span at the end of the season because he only had like 3 targets, 2 targets, and you can't do much when you're only getting targeted 3 times. Hate to break it to everybody, but it is what it is. I think Cooper Kupp will make a fabulous addition to the offense. Bo Nix will love him. I think Sean Payne could do wonders with Cooper Kupp, move him around a bit. But I do think if we do get Cooper Kupp, let's just say in this scenario we do get Cooper Kupp, you still got to add a receiver in the draft. If we do not get Cooper Kupp, you need to get at least 2 of them, in my opinion, in the draft because this room needs to improve rapidly.
Yeah. Brandon?
Yeah, I think Cooper Kupp, he's still a very quality wide receiver. Going back to some previous, picks that we had predicted in the free agency cycle with what Matty had said, I probably would have preferred to have Devontae Adams over Cooper Kupp. Obviously now
it might actually be
Adams is taking Cooper Kupp's place, but I do think Cooper Kupp is still very, very good. The biggest thing with him in LA is, at least in my opinion, was like he was kind of completely overtaken by Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua just kind of stole his role, and Puka Nacua was just like such an incredible young wide receiver for them, even as a rookie, that I can't really blame them for doing that. But I do think there's definitely still a role for Cooper to excel in, and I think it's going to be the role that he would probably be in Denver, which is not a wide receiver 1. He's going to be more your wide receiver 2, or maybe even like a wide receiver 1B. And like, I think that is something that we could realistically get some nice production out of, and we absolutely need in this offense. Now, the biggest thing is like who's going to be in on Cooper Kupp. Now, the cap hit that he had. So before, my biggest thing with Cooper was like, obviously it was pretty much a foregone conclusion that they were going to release him today. And my original opinion was like, okay, well, they're just trying to get something for him. Let's send him a 7th or something, just to like be able to secure him. Well, I mean, you don't think they would have taken it? Is that what you're saying?
Or for a 7th, I don't know if they would go that low.
It's either that or they get nothing. They're releasing him today.
I think they might have taken it.
But no one would give them anything because he had a $29 million cap hit, which I did not realize. But I'm definitely in on him in Denver. I don't know what that number is going to look like. I don't know what that market's going to be like. I wouldn't overpay for him. But I do think he can be a quality wide receiver for an offense that needs another wide receiver. And again, I don't think that precludes us again from taking a wide receiver in this draft. Like literally all of these moves we've talked about at these positions of need, we're still going to be able to take a player there. And the only other major position of need really is running back. But Cooper Kupp would be a nice addition to this offense. I just don't know what he's going to cost, but I think he can have success here playing more of that wide receiver 2 role. Just at this point in his career, he's not really going to be what he was during his prime in LA, but I think it'd be unreasonable to expect that from him.
Yeah, I feel like you'd almost range in between like the 11 million to 15 million range.
Yes, Spotrac has his AAV at 11 mil per year.
Yeah. So, Matty, are you all in on bringing Cooper in and adding more to that cup space for the Denver Broncos?
We do have the cup space.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be fun. And the common theme with 3 of our signings is our medical staff, our physical training staff is better than yours. And we're going to be able to actually keep these guys healthy. Our strength and conditioning at altitude is going to beat you. I think that means something, right? They're willing to take swings where other people maybe are reluctant. Now, he certainly has missed a lot of time, and some people hated me in the predominantly orange chat for bringing that up, but it is, I mean, there's a reason why some of these guys are available in the first place. That being said, for 11 million, I'm in. For 18 million, I'm not in. For 2 years plus 1 team option type of thing, I'm in. For 3 years, mostly guaranteed, I'm not in. So, like, obviously the contract's got to be right. I think the fit, if he's healthy, Cooper Kupp could help almost any team if he's healthy. That's not really the question. It's what's the number and how many games are you paying for? But that they're obviously making a bet. They've gone to the roulette table, and they said, you know what, we're putting it all on black, like because we know something you don't. You're still there. I mean, like Diggs, like I know maybe they're really excited about their staff, but I don't know. I think that was too late of an injury. Like there are certain things like that. Maybe, Amari Cooper turns it around a bit. Maybe there's somebody still available in a trade that we haven't discussed. I mean, DK Metcalf got moved and signed for $30 million a year. Now we probably don't make a deal like that, but there might be other guys too that are contingency plans. Our brain trust of Peyton and Peyton, law firm here knows they've seen the whole timeline. They've Doctor Strange this thing out.
Yeah.
And so they know if this doesn't work out, like we're going this way, this way, and this way. And so I've got trust that they're going to figure that out one way or another.
I think that's the one thing that is so fun, because I think that even if they don't get Cup, there are some options, that they can go. It isn't just, Cooper Cup or bust. I just think that the thing is, like, they have to add to that room. Like, they have to add a veteran, player to that room. But you look at some of those players, and, there's a Keenan Allen there. And I know that, people will mention about Stephon Diggs, and I don't see it. The player-wise, yes. I just don't know, as far as the locker room and the locker room presence, what he would be able to add, for the chemistry of that locker room, specifically since Sean basically said it, that he cares a lot about that locker room. And Diggs a bit has some locker room history, should I say. When you look strictly at the teams that Cooper Cup, as far as fits or could be interested in, top of the list, you got to say, is the Dallas Cowboys. They don't spend much, but you also, thanks to the homework, actually, to give you credit, Jordan, as you and I were talking about Cooper Cup like the other day, it's like, as we found out, his wide receiver coach, who was at Eastern Washington, and also his mentor, is the wide receiver coach with the Dallas Cowboys as it stands currently. So Dallas probably want to put him, as far as interested possibly in, in Dallas. I do believe Denver would be on his list, because it's just, the biggest thing is, like, you want to try and go and maximize your talents with an organization that is going to best put you in places to succeed, right? Denver, and specifically a comfortable situation like that in Dallas, where you know the person, how comfortable you are with that person, regardless if it's Dallas. It's a good situation for you going in. I'm curious about Seattle, just because he's from there. He's from the Pacific Northwest. The one that I think would be interesting. Now, do they need him at all? No. Actually, this is the one team of the other team that's in the division, because there was the Chargers, who don't need Cooper Cup, that I feel like has been kind of lingered out there. But the one I would kind of find interesting, if you're looking at just structure of offensive, like, majesty, would be the Minnesota Vikings. But they don't need him, in a sense, because they got Jordan Addison and they have Justin Jefferson. So they don't exactly need Cooper Cup.
Unless Aaron Rodgers says, "Go get me, Cup."
Maybe.
Imagine that 11 personnel with the Vikings. That'd be Hawkinson, Addison, Jefferson, Cup. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. That'd be nuts. But then you have the one that's the biggest wild card here, and a team that missed out on Chris Godwin and gobs of money, and that would be the New England Patriots. And so the question would just be about, for Cup, is it all about money? Because that they would be offering the $50 million to ensure that he's going to be there. The question is just, does he want to be a New England Patriot? That's really just kind of the ultimate question. So Matty, let's take it off to you, because I think I saw a tear run down your face. When Devontae Adams, signed with the Los Angeles Rams, replacing Cooper Cup. Where do you turn to next, Matty, to kind of cheer you up a little bit, to get your juices flowing of moving on from Devontae Adams as a member of the...
Are you talking about my football juices? Well, the juice is loose. We could go get a use check.
Please.
Which would not suck. I'd imagine that Peyton could figure out some fun ways to get him involved. And then all the, Ingram doesn't block. Boo, boo, boo. Like, okay, cute. Well, we're going to run 21, and we're going to have juice in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's essentially like 12, except we have more versatility when he's in the backfield. And yeah, like we're moving forward there. So that could be a fun addition. I don't know how large of a market he would have, but there are a lot of different fun avenues that we could go to. One that we hadn't discussed really, going back to the other side of the ball, talking about just vibes. Mike brought it up in the chat. Von Miller. Is it Miller time?
Brandon?
I don't know, man. I feel like that's kind of run its course, and I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't be mad, but you have to factor in not even the money. To me, it's like, what is he doing with you? Is he gonna play any kind of meaningful snaps? And if that's the case, who are you taking off the field to put him in there? Like, I don't think he's going to be a better pass rusher at this point in his career than either of our two main pass rushers. It just kind of sucks, but I don't know. I don't know if he fits. I just don't know if he fits. I mean, you playing him over Jonathan Cooper or Nick Benito?
No, but I might play him over Tillman in spots.
I mean, maybe it's like a depth signing. Let him retire as a Bronco. I could see that happening. But
let him get his DeMarcus Ware on, and Benito could be the Von Miller to Von Miller being DeMarcus Ware.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it. I don't see it happening, but I wouldn't hate it.
One year, 5.5 million. Why not?
I don't know if it would be 5.5 million though.
They could take that little.
Yeah.
Bring him home.
Bring him home.
Bring him home.
It's, I don't know. It's just, it's hard because it's like on the hand of like for Von Miller, it's like, it's the beginning of a like a reopening in a sense, because Von had already had that in Denver, but it's like an opening where it's a Super Bowl window for the Broncos, or the beginning of a Super Bowl window again. And he's still out there. So he fits that timeline of like going out and getting, depth pieces like that. I just don't know if it makes a ton of sense right now, but I don't hate it. I mean, look, I will gladly take him back, to be safety 3.
There's no way he asked for that much money. I mean, he just got the bag in Buffalo. I think he knows he's on his last 9, if you want to say. Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's going to be demanding that much.
So the 1 for 5, you think the 1 for 5 could be accurate?
I'm not saying it's going to be that little, but I think it might be around that range. Like, I think Vaughn is self-aware enough to know that his time is coming up a bit. I think he's more of a depth guy, if anything. I mean, and he still has a little in the tank. I'm just saying he's not what he used to be. That he plays every snap and he's that guy. But listen, just come back home, take that hometown discount if you want to say that. And just be that role model for the guys in the room and retire Bronco. I think that's the best thing for him, if I'm being quite honest.
One thing is for sure, though. I think we can all agree he will be back. I mean, like, he's going to retire a Denver Bronco. Like, he'll sign his 1-day contract. Justin Simmons will as well. Like, they'll be back. They'll retire a Denver Bronco. It's not a matter of, if, it's a matter of when. I mean, it's so, and maybe for Miller, it's one where it might actually end up being a signing, that's not now, but like, as you kind of, get closer after the draft, is when it happens. Okay. So to kind of tie things up and moving forward to the rest of free agency, and you look at some of the rest of the moves and predicting some of the rest of the moves that are going to be made by our Denver Broncos. We'll start with you, Brandon. Predict, and this will just be the handful of moves, but just predict what you feel is the handful of moves that will be made by the Denver Broncos.
Are we talking free agency only, or are we talking like we're including the draft in this?
No, not
moves.
Free agency.
I consider draft picks moves. Let me see who's still available, to be honest with you. I don't think there's going to be too much more that happens. A guy that I wouldn't hate looking at, I think you maybe just need to get some more juice along the offensive line. Maybe get like some kind of depth piece there. I don't think it's going to be anything major, but I wouldn't be too surprised if we try to shore up either one of the lines a bit more. Maybe specifically the offensive line, just because I think they could maybe use a little bit more depth on the interior. I don't know if there's that many guys available, but I don't think we're going to be signing a running back. Like, that's kind of what I'm going to stick with. I don't think we'll be doing that. I think if that was going to happen, it would have happened already. To me, it's pretty clear that they're going to be going for a draft target. I don't know who that's going to specifically be, but I don't know, someone like, I don't know how much he would cost, and he's like 31, but Shaq Mason is a free agent. He's not been the best for Houston, but again, I think he's going to be a serviceable interior depth piece, but he might be too much money. I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe try to go for some kind of maybe reclamation project and or just additional depth piece, maybe at corner. Maybe like a Mike Hilton could be an option there. I don't know. I don't think there's going to be, like, honestly, I don't think there's going to be any huge signings that are going to be taking place. Just me personally, would I love to get Cooper Kupp? Sure. I actually wouldn't even hate Amari Cooper. Like, I would kind of enjoy that signing, actually. I just don't think it's going to happen. So as much as it's kind of not flashy, those are kind of the names that I would throw out there. But I don't think there's going to be anyone that's going to massively like move the needle at this point. I think all of those signings have been made. But, you know, maybe someone like, maybe take like a flyer on 30-year-old Tre'Davious White. I don't know. I think you might just get a depth signing here or there.
I'm right along those lines. I think it's either one of the three. I think obviously at the top, Cooper Kupp. I think the second would actually be, I think this is an interesting one. We mentioned his name before, Kyle Juszczyk. There's something with that can be a little yeah. And then the third one, it was actually a depth corner that I was thinking about, Dory Jackson, just taking a flyer in for depth purposes, and maybe we can find another, not diamond in the rough, but maybe we can, strike gold with them.
But they love that versatility, and he brings it.
Yeah, and maybe another one. I know a lot has been said about him, but maybe a CJ Henderson. Maybe not just because he went to Columbus High School, which is right here, but again, he's a guy that, the South Florida kids in our locker room knows. Maybe he can rejuvenate, or however you want to say, revitalize his career, you want to say. I mean, he was the 9th overall pick for a reason. So he does have talent. Maybe with mentorship around PS2 and some of the other guys, he can bring it out of him.
Yeah. Matty, you're gonna put some names out on your big whiteboard over there. As far as your remaining free agents that you want the Broncos to sign.
I don't know about want to sign, but I know we just got we signed somebody to this position. But who's our defensive coordinator?
It would be Vance Joseph or Jim Leonard in waiting.
Okay, I know who he's gonna say.
Yeah. There was a really high draft pick when he was in Arizona who's available.
I want him.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jordan. Why do you want him? And who do you want?
You want to talk about versatility within that defense and that linebacker unit too? I mean, you can just put him out on the field. You don't know what position he's going to be. I mean, he can play a lot of positions, and you can hide him. Not hide him per se, but if you want to talk about jokers on the offensive side, he is the joker on the defensive side of the ball, if I'm being quite honest. So, yeah, Matty, I'm with you, brother.
Isaiah Simmons, man. Let's go. Free agent, the dude is – I mean, he's going to turn 27 before the league year or before the regular season starts. perfect. Like you could sign him to a, hey, welcome to this defense and like, let's get to work type of deal. And who knows, like with all the talent we have, but like, yeah, I know that we're going to, Singleton's back, right? By all intents and purposes, like we think he's good to go. Obviously we just signed Greenlaw, but like we've got Strnad. Is Drew Sanders really going to work there in the middle? We don't know. Like if we're willing to still wait on Sanders, why wouldn't we give Simmons a chance? I think like something like that is interesting that maybe some people aren't really considering. And then I also like the idea of doing a late, like a day 3 pick swap with Atlanta and getting a Tyler Algier,
24 years old,
to add to that, because very productive when he actually got snaps. It's just he played behind Bijan Robinson, who's a freak. Like you can't really hate on that. You know, that guy's going to get all the touches. So, and he's on the last year of his deal, and we just saw that he might be made available too. So I think like a late pick swap for him is about right for his value. And who knows, maybe he could come in and he is what we were hoping that Javonte was going to be last year. And then we draft our game breaker, our Judkins, our Henderson, or somebody like that on day 2. And then you got to like that running back room if that's where we get to. So still a few little avenues for help running the ball and then stopping the run.
I will say the more things do transpire, I have a feeling that either the Broncos are wanting a specific running back to their room, or they are going to be drafting a running back high. And when I'm saying high, like you can almost put to the bank that they will be taking one of the top 5 running backs. I should say top 4 running backs, maybe not including Ashton Genty, because it seems like Ashton Genty is going to be going inside the top 10. Although crazier things have happened. But I think if I was going to be making a call about a running back, that they could sign, he fits the mold. He fits the mold of where they're going in terms of injury players, but also productive players when they've been on the field. He wasn't injured last year, but he put forth a really good season. And you also have a chance to maybe even keep him in division, and that is J.K. Dobbins. I would love J.K. Dobbins here. And I think you might even be able to swing a Kyle Juszczyk and J.K. Dobbins deal. And so if you're able to do both of that, I mean, you're talking about a situation where you can still take a Trevion Henderson, or even a Caleb Johnson, or even an Amarian Hampton at 20, and you have a Hampton Dobbins, type of room with, Estime and Jaleel and, and you've, much like the wide receiver room that kind of Jordan was talking about, you've massively upgraded that room, moving forward, heading into the draft. And so, but I will, as I said, like the more things are starting to kind of unfold, it seems like they might want to be going more toward the draft instead of kind of free agency as kind of each day progresses. And I would throw in wide receiver, but I've already made my prediction out there about Amari Cooper. And so that's kind of still out in the wings, if you will. So I'm 1 for 2 there, but it's gonna be a lot of fun. And we are also going to be doing a special episode of kind of some of the same talking points, but we're going to do it with a guest this week. We're going to do it with a special guest of the Locked On Broncos podcast. We are going to be doing it with none other than Sayer Bettinger. We might be talking about Lord of the Rings, how it's the greatest franchise since sliced bread, how Harry Potter's pretty mid, and talk about how great Narnia is, everything that basically transpired in our PO chat. No, I'm kidding. But no, he will be a phenomenal guest. We're going to basically be talking about everything that we kind of touched on this week from Sayer's perspective, and then maybe some other moves. I mean, who knows? Maybe the Broncos aren't done. They've been known to kind of pull a fast one on us and make a move as people are recording shows. So anyway, thank you so much for hopping in with us. And as we said, it is the dawn of a new age over here at the Manely Broncos podcast and the MHRT network with Jordan in the mix. It's going to be a phenomenal era of Manely Broncos, and a phenomenal era of the Bo Nix era here in Denver with the additions of Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, and then Evan Ingram. And so there is not a more appropriate way to end this show than
let's go Broncos! God bless Bo Nix!
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.